Today we're talking about Eduard Seler, who was a Central American anthropologist and a museum director. Basically, he was a fellow from Germany who became very fascinated with Mesoamerican culture and managed to get funding to go over there for about 6 years with his wife and collected a whole lot of material and founded a museum and published many books about his analyses of Mesoamerican art and culture. So this is his kind of timeline of his life. He was born in Prussia, which is basically what we think of as Germany now. But his father was a teacher, and so he was educated on a scholarship for teachers' sons, a special one. So that was his basic grade school education through high school. And after that, he attended the University of Breslau in Germany, and then he was drafted after a year into the Franco-Prussian War, where he served for a year. After that, he got out and he went to the University of Berlin, uh, and he got his Oberlehrer degree, basically an undergraduate degree from the University of Berlin. And he got a job teaching math and natural sciences. But after a year, they say he contracted an illness. He resigned from his teaching position. I think he probably got ill from teaching high school kids or something. But he began to study linguistics, astrology, and archaeology. So he started getting into his things, and he got into pre-Columbian Mesoamerican culture. He got fascinated by that. Well, he went back to school. He got himself a PhD degree from the University of Leipzig, and then he got funding to travel to Mexico for field studies with his wife Cecilia, and who was a photographer and also an archaeologist. So they were like a team, and they did a bunch of seasons there, and they founded a museum in Germany, a very well-known, still well-known museum. And he served as the director and curator of that museum, and until he died in 1922, and he was buried in an Aztec urn. When his wife, who was pretty amazing herself, when she passed away, she joined him in the urn. This is the, she was a sharp cookie. She was the photographer, and he did drawings, and yeah. So they worked as a team, and they traveled into the hinterlands of the Mexican highlands, into an area called Oaxaca, and they found the Monte Alban culture and many other things, and they became collectors of artifacts. When people say, well, how did they collect it? Basically, when they got there, they had all kinds of introductions from sort of hoi polloi. And so when they came to town, they would have pockets full of money and letters of introduction from the president of Mexico. And so the locals were always very impressed. And so they would say, well, if you have any artifacts that you've discovered in the local countryside, we would love to see them, and because we'd like to buy them from you. So if you do find any artifacts, let us know, because we'd like probably to buy them. And so people would go out into the countryside and scour them for artifacts and bring them back, and the sellers would buy them. And this, of course, was not great for provenance, etc., but it did, create a large collection of materials that were there and then later able to be established, through seriation as to what they actually were, even if they were, separated from their original locations where they were found. But at any rate, that is one of the ways that he was in Oaxaca. Let's look more where that is. We can see it's in the lower section of Mexico, just kind of west of the Yucatan Peninsula. It's the Olmec heartland, and he was in a place called it's Oaxaca, which I always love to say. It's a lot of fun, and you can see what it was. Actually, it's a fortress on the top of a mountain. It's kind of wild. Can you imagine the place? It's like way, you can see the valley below that it would have water and agricultural areas and stuff like that, natural living places. But this was a fortress on the top of the mountain. It's an odd place, kind of a strange place, huh? It's called Monte Alban, and you can see there where it is in Oaxaca. And you can see it's at the confluence of some rivers, which is natural for an important strategic location for a city, which is what, in fact, that turned out to be. Well, the thing about that, he became a sort of collector. One of the things he collected was these codices. He saved several codices, important codices, and he studied them. and he found that indications that they contained numbering systems and knowledge systems from the ancient people of the area. And he couldn't understand all of it, but he recognized stuff that was astronomical and numerical, and it seemed to embody some sort of a system of encoded knowledge. He didn't think that they were, it was writing per se. He thought they were more pictograms, as far as I can tell. But his work laid the foundation for later deciphering of them by a lady named Linda Sheeler. So he was into drawing. His wife was into photography. I think these are actually two different objects, but I think that the bases are different, slightly different, significantly different. I don't. It's very interesting. The collections that he has more than one of many types, and it's quite interesting for analytical purposes. The collections that he made. This is an example of one of them. Um, and these things are still available for the public to study. He was very, very prolific, and he was very well known for analyzing and sharing the publication of these codices that he was able to preserve. So he traveled for 6 seasons, and he basically would go around buying these things. He would say, "Well, I've got the money," and you can see these things still today. So, in a way, yes, he took them out of context, but he also saved them and made them available for people to study for that time, and even up until now and into the future. So he wasn't trying to do it for cash or anything like that. He was just doing it for the love of knowledge and understanding. Um, Basically, he made pencil sketches and watercolors. His wife would take photographs. He kept scrupulous records with black ink on cards so that he could keep track of what everything was and when it was, all the information about it. Um, and for the data, he ended up giving it to many institutions where it can still be seen today. Um, his underlying assumptions were that somewhere encoded inside these pictures, fancy pictures though they were not just cool images, but they were some sort of a knowledge system was at work, and that they could be somehow decoded. He believed that, and he worked to try to make that happen. In fact, he did discover that it contained the elements of the Aztec calendar. I'm not going to stick on this too deeply, but I want to kind of share. He found that Tzolk'in, which is a 260-day calendar. I particularly wanted to throw this one in because you could see the third row down in the middle there says my name, Ben. And it had that calendar in some of these images that he showed. It also had another of the calendars, a 365-day calendar, much like ours. So that 260-day one went like kind of inside this one. And it would repeat, like be a little bit off because it was like 105 days short from the 365 one. So it would be like off at the end of the year and it'd be keep getting it off. But every 52 years, it would be back on sync with the 365. So he showed that the existence of these things, and and that was one of the biggest contributions that he made, besides saving the codices themselves and creating those collections, was pointing people in the direction that that the codices contained important information about ancient culture of Mesoamerica. So they made this material available for people all over the world, then and now and into the future, and contributed to the knowledge of the linguistics and the cosmology and the culture of Mesoamerica in pre-Columbian times. This just gives a little bit. You can see the image there that we were. You can see here showing some of the corners. You can see like the reeds and the rabbit and the flint knife and house. These are symbols of the directions, and this is all kind of part of the calendrical system. And he sensed that, and he found that, and he explained it and shared it, and people were able to recognize that that's so, and even develop it further and understand it better than he did. So, what was his view of the indigenous people? Well, I think he seemed perplexed and very impressed by them. I think he was surprised that they were, well, I think he sensed from the beginning that they were astounding, and he wanted to uncover them and understand them. And he thought that they were just so different. He just wanted to understand. That's my sense of it. But I think that he remained distant, and he had sort of an elitist attitude, and he did purchase artifacts from them and employed indigenous people as workers and guides. I would say that overall, as an academic researcher, he served the interests of European colonialism in a general way. So how did his theory contribute to settler colonialism? In my view, I think what happened is that his going over there and purchasing these things, taking them out of context and with money that, sort of as an expression of power, in a way, I think that he supported the cultural imperialism of the time, and he sort of promoted and manifested that myth of progressive European expansionism. Um, so I think that overall he had a mixed bag of results, but within his time, I felt like he deserves respect for having created these collections and shared his interest in cosmology and his recognition of the cosmology of the Mesoamericans. So here's my reference materials. Let's see, you can look at them over here for a bit. Um, they're clickable for you, but if they're clickable, go ahead and click on them. There certainly were some good stuff there. Okay, well, anyway, that's it. You have a great day.